Welcome back. My name is Shakil Salam and you're watching Ummah Channel Sky 820. This is the health show and we're talking about kidney. It's part of World Kidney Day. We have three fantastic guests and we're going to talk about the kidney, if anything goes wrong. Also, we're looking at the treatment. So, Ajay, if I come to you and look at what are the treatments, when people are being diagnosed with kidney failures, what are the best sort of treatment available under NHS?
Right. So it depends on the stages of the kidney failure, and it's like there is a small percentage of conditions where a treatment completely makes kidneys normal. They are relatively rare, and the main thing is the chronic kidney disease, which is unfortunately progressive disease. So in early stages, the main thing, there isn't anything apart from controlling blood pressure. That's the best thing that helps kidneys to carry on a little bit longer. So if the kidney function was going to drop from 30% to 20% in 2 years, with a good blood pressure control, you can easily make it 4 years or 5 years. Or delaying dialysis for 4 or 5 years, it's a really big thing. Those who've gone down on dialysis, they appreciate that a year's holiday from dialysis, there's nothing like that. So in the early stages, it's really all about blood pressure, and that's about it. As the kidney function starts to go down, then some of the other complications starts to appear. So some of them is like the phosphate retention, the calcium can go down, and there are the glands in the neck called parathyroid, they become hyperfunctioning. So you need certain medications to control the parathyroid levels, phosphate levels. Then the dietary restrictions come around the same time. The acid in the blood builds up. Some of the salt levels like potassium starts to go, phosphates goes up, and there are medications to control that. Anemia becomes more obvious, and then there are treatment for that. So that could be in the form of iron injections. In mild form, one could use iron tablets, and then there are a hormone called EPO. So those injections are needed. So quite a few medications starts coming. So if somebody starts with a kidney failure with 50% kidney function and 2 blood pressure pills, by the time they're close to dialysis, as you've heard, 20 tablets were required just to control the bicarbonate levels and potassium. And you add the phosphate, they can be 8, 9 phosphate binder tablets, then your anemia treatment. So it's medications until it goes down to less than 10%, which is when the dialysis type of treatment or transplant is really required.
Okay. Fazan, does that remind you any of those treatments, what doctor is describing?
I've done all pretty much.
You've done all of them?
Yeah, I've pretty much done them all.
And how difficult it was, taking medication, injections and...
With tablets, I've been all right, to be honest, because I've had them pretty much since birth. It's just tablets on.
So you got used to it?
Yeah, I got used to it. So tablets have never really been a big deal for me. I found dialysis hard, as mentioned before, because it was something new. It wasn't really something I saw other people doing. Like it made me stand out. Obviously, having to sit on the machine for 12 hours, because as Saudi as well, I had an overnight machine. So whereas my mates might have been playing footy at the local park or whatever, I was stuck at home, stuck to a machine, because it had to be finished in time for me to go to school the next morning. So I had to start it really early as well. So my evenings were quite short as well. So it was kind of depressing for a few years, to be honest, just being stuck to a machine to have to live, pretty much.
It is. It's the hardest thing, isn't it? Sadia, if we come back to you, did you go on dialysis?
Yeah, I did the PD dialysis, yes. I did the PD dialysis, and like Faizan mentioned, I did 8 hours overnight. And like Faizan said, he had to go to school, I had to go to work in the beginning, and that was hard. I had to start. So if I was visiting friends or family, and I said, I'm sorry, I have to go home, because at this time the machine starts, and it has to start this time. And to run the full 8 hours, I need to go home. So I couldn't visit friends and family as much, and that was hard for me as well. And then when the machine runs, it bleeps in the night as well. So if you want to go to the toilet, you want a drink of water, you can pause it for a minute and you can go. But when it bleeps, it's because it's blocked. You've either sat on it or you've lied on it, and then you've got to actually move around, so you get broken sleep as well. So you're not really sleeping then. And then if you're working during the day, and like Faith mentioned, if you're going to school during the day, it's difficult then.
You can't concentrate, can you?
Can't concentrate, no. And you can't sleep at night, that's the main thing. you lose a lot of sleep.
And what sort of support there is for people like Fizan and Sadia, because it's very emotionally very depressing what Fizan
Absolutely.
said. Is there any counselling, any support available for people?
Yeah, I think we are getting better as a community. I think as usual with most of these things, the initial focus was on the physical aspects of the illness, and it's not just kind of the patients, but it's the disease that affects the whole family. And you would recall your parents, your husband, your child, not being able to play with the child. How do you explain 3-year-old? Mummy's not well.
Very difficult.
It brings down the whole family. It's not just about patients. So we're getting better. We got counsellors now, and they specialize in kidney medicine as such. So there are renal counsellors. Certainly in Preston, we've got a lady who is extremely good, and most of the patients find the support very helpful. Obviously, you can't change what you've got, but it's more how to cope with that. And then there are other things like that people aren't aware of, that social workers might be able to do some extra things. Particularly for the younger children, there are more focuses on the younger children because their life changes in a really big way. So the groups are there either in the social media or otherwise, and some of these people are even arranging, there are kind of the team worker for the kind of youth team worker or a young child team worker, and they're organizing social events for kidney patients themselves. So they get together and then they forget about their illness, they probably talk about something else. So it's getting better. I think we've learned a lot. A few years ago we were really bad. We were just worried about the physical aspects, and it was all about, no, your potassium is high and your phosphates are high and your blood pressure is high and you're carrying excess fluid, don't do this, don't do that. We were pretty much dictatorial, but I think we've learned that it's not an easy thing to deal with. And to some extent, when they're on dialysis, we're now aware of how much pressure it puts on the family members and carers. So there are things in place. There is room for improvement.
Absolutely. Fizan, did you get any support? Were you able to get support from family, friends, from hospital, from...
My family obviously were a great support.
Yeah.
So my mom, my dad, my brothers, they were there for me when I was on dialysis, among the other many things we've been through together. So my family have been my main support, to be honest. Recently, as AJ's mentioned, they have support groups online and stuff for young people. I just made the threshold, so it's like 18 to 30, so I just made it. So I've been to a few social events with a few of the other young people with our illness, so that's been quite good, meeting other people who are also similar age, going through similar things, and we talk about stuff there, so it has been good.
Sadia, same question. What sort of support did you have? Certainly in terms of family.
Yeah, I used to be in and out of the hospital a lot, and my mum and dad used to look after my son. My husband did a lot for me as well. He had to go to work, obviously, but anytime he supported me at home, he looked after my son, obviously. But a lot of support from the nurses as well, who came and showed us how to use the machines.
Yeah.
And my husband got trained, my mum and dad got trained, so we all knew if something was wrong with the machine, if I was on it, what kind of things could go wrong with it, and we were all kind of trained. Also, more extended family, they were aware of that, what was going on, so they used to come and visit, and they used to come and talk to you. So if I couldn't visit, they could come and see me. So I've got extended family in Blackburn, where I live in Blackburn, and they used to come and visit, and that used to be really helpful as well.
Okay, so a lot of support, which is very good. So we talked about dialysis. Is that the only solution, or is there any other options as well?
Transplant is the best treatment, but obviously there are only limited kidneys are available, so everybody isn't lucky to get transplant as soon as they need it, and there's a waiting game. So until then, the dialysis is there. Now, obviously, there is a bit of a positive side of it, that if somebody had a liver failure or a heart failure or lung failure, you quite often have a very narrow window to get a liver transplant or heart. I mean, they are in hospital for 3 months waiting for the heart, and if they don't get that organ in that period of time, that is end of their life. Dialysis can keep people alive for years and years. The quality is compromised heavily, but it at least bridges that gap between the second transplant. So people start with PD, get a transplant, then transplant functions for a number of years, probably what has happened with you. Then second transplant, maybe a short spell on hemodialysis. And so in a way, dialysis, at least unlike the heart and liver, it gives a longer windows of opportunities to get the transplant in timely fashion. It does come with a compromise, but there is some possibly positive side about that. It does keep people alive with a lot of restrictions though.
So transplant is probably the solution and probably the best solution available at the moment. But you mentioned about there is a shortage certainly with South Asian community.
Very much so.
And that is something we're going to talk about in detail. Faizan, you had transplant from very early age and you had few transplants since.
I've had 2 so far.
2 so far.
Yeah.
And waiting for the 3rd
Yeah.
transplant now. Compared from dialysis to transplant, what was the change like?
Oh, massive. You can pretty much go and do things that you want to do. You don't have to worry about, I have to be home at a certain time to sit on a machine. You don't have to worry about what you eat or what tablets you have to take depending on what you eat. You can eat as much as you want or as little. It's totally your decision, whereas normally you have to take everything into consideration. So a simple night out with the friends to go for a meal would take planning of what am I going to pick from this menu, how much of it can I eat, what tablets do I need to take afterwards. You don't have to worry about that. You can just go, enjoy your meal and have fun with your friends.
Fantastic. Excellent. Sadia, you tell us what happened then after dialysis. You had dialysis for how long?
I was very lucky. I had it for 11 months. I had dialysis for 11 months.
After that, did you put your name down for
Well,
transplant?
first of all, what happened, the doctors asked me for my family members. My husband and my mum and dad are all 3 of them are diabetic, so they can't donate their kidneys. So then I was put through some stress tests, some physical tests to go on the NHS register, the transplant list. And again, you have to watch your weight. Your BMI has got to be a certain level. I think mine had to be 29. And you have to look after yourself, stay healthy. Look at blood pressure under control, all things like that. Then you stay on the register. But before that, you worry that what's going to happen, and you worry, if you're going to get the transplant, and you get family members saying to you, "Do you think it's better to go abroad to get a transplant to other countries and things like that?" And I wouldn't recommend it to go abroad personally, but when you get desperate, you get desperate.
So that came in your mind, and family suggested at one time.
Family did suggest it, but it was very hard to say no at certain times. But I knew that the level of care up here is fantastic, so I wouldn't have gone abroad. That was the.
Ajay, that's another point, isn't it? Because when you're so desperate and you take some desperate measures, and one is to go abroad, probably pay for kidney and the kidney transplant. What do you think?
I 100% agree with Sadia. I mean, sadly, there are lots of unscrupulous people who make business out of anything and everything. And they are ruthless about these things, and we have seen horror stories. People have gone abroad to, well, bluntly speaking, buy a kidney and have come back with more problems. They were better off on dialysis than getting a transplant from a dodgy center elsewhere. So there's a bit of a wait in the NHS, but definitely it's the safest option. Shortcuts don't always work very well, to be honest.
Faizan, you're on the waiting list at the moment. How long have you been on the list?
So far, about a year and a half roughly.
So you have no idea, it can happen any time, or it could be
it's
months
like a
and
piece
months.
of string, really.
And that's quite frustrating, isn't it? Not knowing.
Yeah, I mean, it can be, because you're pretty much living on standby all the time, waiting whether the phone call may come or may not come, or it may be tomorrow, next week, next month, next year. So yeah, you don't know, just kind of live in limbo and wait.
Yeah. Sadia, you went on the transplant register. Did you get a phone call?
I got a phone call. I got it in the middle of the night, 6 o'clock in the morning, and I got it in Ramadan as well. And
so this month of Ramadan?
Ramadan I got it, 2013.
2 years ago, yeah.
About 2 years ago.
3 years ago.
And the phone call, the lady on the phone said that there's a kidney here, but you are the 3rd person on the list. So you need to come in, you may not be selected, you need to be aware you may not be selected, but you're the third person on that list. So we quickly got changed and we went to Manchester, because that's where the kidney transplants are done, and tests were done for tissue match, blood match. And then, but like I mentioned, you're the third person, and there are 2 more people waiting before you, and if for some reason they don't get that kidney, then you will be considered. And I was one of the lucky ones. Lucky for me, but unlucky for them people. One of the person had blood pressure, high blood pressure. Like I said, it's selective surgery as well, this procedure is. So if there's something wrong, like high blood pressure, they won't take you on. Or one of the things. That was the man who didn't get the first choice. The second lady, she found out about what the surgery was, so she didn't want to go through with the surgery. So
she panicked.
She panicked. When she heard what was the transplant all about, what was going to happen, she just said, I just don't want to go through with it. And then I was considered, and it was done very, very quickly. As soon as it's all done, 6 o'clock, you're in there. Blood tests are in by 8, 9 o'clock, and then you're in surgery by 12 o'clock. Because you've got to remember the kidneys, I don't know where the kidney's coming from, but it's on ice as well, isn't it, the kidneys? So that's how I got my kidney.
So you have no idea where the kidney come from?
No idea at all.
But you have that kidney and it's functioning fine?
It's functioning fine, yeah.
No more dialysis?
No more dialysis, no.
Okay. Something, Sadia was very lucky because although she was third on the list, but she got it. It's massive change, isn't it, when you got it?
Life comes back to normal. You've heard from everybody when you can do whatever you like. I mean, what Sadia and Faizan were saying initially, that you're planning your life around dialysis when you're on dialysis, that you have to be at home this time, you can eat this, you can't eat that. Everything is about dialysis, but when you get transplant, you forget all about that. You get a freedom, it's a second lease of life, and there's nothing like that.
It is. It's amazing, isn't it?
Absolutely amazing.
So was family happy?
Family very happy. I mean, like I mentioned before, I used to work as a teacher, primary school teacher. I've reapplied for jobs, and I work as a tutor now for the council, and I teach adults English and ICT.
So life is back to normal?
Back to normal for me. I can play with my child, I can spend a lot of time with my child, more time with my family as well.
And you
not
can
worrying
have proper
about
rest and you can sleep at night, rather than waiting for machine to
and eat what you want. Like Faizan mentioned, you can eat what you want. And there's certain food like you couldn't eat. I couldn't eat things like bananas because my potassium was very high. I couldn't eat things like spinach, my phosphate, things like that were quite high. But after that, you can eat literally what you want.
So eat whatever she wants.
Holidays was other things.
Travel as well, eh?
Yeah, travel. I mentioned travel on dialysis. When you're on dialysis, you can't travel anywhere much because you're doing dialysis. You've got to think about. You've got to take the machine wherever you're going. So if you're going Pakistan, India, even if you're going to London, for example, you've got to take the machine with you. You can't miss dialysis no matter what happens, because then that affects your health, and you've got to plan around it. It takes 3 months. I think Dr. Ajay will tell you more detail, but it takes a lot of planning to go abroad with dialysis.
So Ajay, when she's saying traveling, is there any portable machine she can carry with her, or is it?
Yeah, the PD machines are portable. The peritoneal dialysis, the tummy one. The hemodialysis machines were very clunky. They were kind of started with the size of a fridge, and now they've become much smaller than that. But in last couple of years, there are new portable hemodialysis machines. The blood dialysis machines have become available, and in Preston we've started using them. And the beauty of them is they are portable. You can take them, and the airlines are kind enough to give extra allowance for that one, as long as you get a medical letter, so it's not counted as your routine package. If people were to dialyze in Europe, then with the European kind of contracts, if it was a peritoneal dialysis, fluid gets delivered on the site. If it's a hemodialysis, you can go to certain centers, and the holiday coordinators will liaise with those dialysis units. Most of the South Asian travel outside Europe, and we have those kind of limitations. So that's where the holiday coordinators have got not much access about the network outside Europe, and that does put some limitations.
Absolutely. Faizan, did you travel around the world? Did you go anywhere? Did you?
Not whilst I was on dialysis, no.
Nowhere you could travel?
No. I was quite young, so we didn't really travel much when I was younger, and this time round, I don't think so. I might try and fit a holiday before the hemo starts, and then I don't have to worry about all that.
Oh, right.
So I might try and fit one in beforehand. But I don't know, it's just, a lot more stressed by the sounds of it. So
yeah, but it's a lot of planning, isn't it?
Yeah,
because it's
it's a
not
lot of
just,
planning.
and how difficult it is, isn't it? Because you're limited what you can
Yeah.
or can't do.
And maybe even where you can and can't go.
Mm.
So if they don't have centres in that place, then
Yeah.
then you can't dialyse, so you can't go to wherever you may want to go.
So there is a lot of restrictions.
And it's got to be safe and clean place as well while you dialyse. So in some countries, if the place isn't clean, you can't actually, you've got to have recommended where the holiday coordinators tell you to go.
Yeah.
It's clean, hygienic and sterile places.
We talked about diet. There are certain things. Drinking water is a good thing,
There's nothing like that, no.
but no fizzy drink.
No fizzy drinks, no.
Fazan, are you listening? No fizzy drink for you.
Right.
Do you like fizzy drinks?
I don't mind them, they're alright.
They're all right. What about you?
I do drink fizzy drinks, but I'm not supposed to, but I do drink sometimes.
You're telling, yeah, you have to be very careful. You're talking.
I'm
I
telling
think
you,
everything
Doctor
has
Anna.
limitations.
Yeah,
There's limitation. What
Yeah.
about the normal diet? You know, salan roti and
Yeah, you can have-
chawal and
yeah.
atta and
Things like that. Because before dialysis, it's all about spices. You can't have certain spices because, you know, it was too spicy, certain foods. Now you can have anything you want. I mean, I remember that I missed my chips. I used to miss chips. It's one of the things
We're
craving. I
hearing
used
loads
to
of
chips.
unhealthy stuff here, isn't it?
But then when you get over it, you've had your chips and, you know, you've eaten your chips, then you sort of like, yeah, okay, you can have other foods as well now. So, it's the thing.
But there's people like Fazan and Sadia have to be still careful because although they got transplant, do they need to be careful in terms of what they can and can't do?
Absolutely, yeah. Because it is still one kidney rather than two kidneys, so you have to look after it very well. And as Fazan has already said, that he's had his second transplant and is waiting for the third one. So they don't last forever. They do last long enough, and they're getting better and better. But we have to look after even after transplant. The anti-rejection medications are their religion. You can't afford to miss them, not even single dose. So some limitations are there, but overall change in the quality is absolutely good. And I say you do get some freedom then. So yeah, once in a while everybody wants to have a bit of chips and fizzy drinks, but that's normal life.
Bit of chips, is
a bit of chips,
okay.
yeah, like I mentioned,
Not-
just a bit. In moderation.
In moderation.
In moderation,
That's
that's it, in
That's
moderation.
it. That's the, yeah. Talking about, you know, the issues and concern, you know, looking at kidney failure. I mean, you know, Faizan was born with that. Sadia had it later stage of life. Is there age factor plays important role in terms of kidney failure?
It does, and then again, I think fortunately it affects older people a lot more than young people. So that's a good thing that most of them have completed their schoolings and family. Obviously, not everybody is fortunate, but predominantly it's old people's disease. And certain things like diabetes and blood pressure takes many years to cause the damage. So if somebody develops diabetes at 40, they may not develop kidney damage till they're 60. And some rare things are common in young age. Some people are born with kind of faulty kidneys or no kidneys or lots of cysts in the kidneys, and those things means they need dialysis or transplant at a very young age, and that does affect life quite a lot.
It is important to look after your health and well-being. That's a generic message anyway. But awareness is really important, isn't it? Because Sadia and Fizan got a lot of support from their family and friend. And I think it's a lot to do with because they understood more about kidney. Because when people don't go through that process, it's really difficult for them to understand and appreciate. So how important it is for community to understand.
I think we need to share this in the community. And again, probably you would recall that in the beginning when it started, you didn't have all the knowledge or all the things. So it's a very steep learning curve. You find out from, go to the hospitals, the nurses tell you, social worker may tell you. There is a kidney patient associations are there, and there are local branches. They are very active. They do a fantastic job. But it's still limited. There is still, I think, whether there is a lack of willingness for people to hear about it or to engage. If it's something about the heart disease, people will hear about it, or cancer, people hear. But with kidney disease, the awareness is still very limited. And because it can be asymptomatic for a number of years, where the golden period or golden opportunity to start the treatment or intervention early can be missed, it is crucial that we need to share it, and that needs to be done at the community level.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we've taken the first step today. We brought you in, and wonderful people with a wealth of experience are here today. And this is the opportunity for all of us to know more about kidney, look after your own kidneys, and at the same time understand more about this illness. In our community, diabetes is very common, at the same time as high blood pressure. There's massive issue, and organ donation is another thing perhaps we need to raise awareness within our community, with families and friends. And what we're going to do is, after the break, we're going to talk about organ donation, and we will get some key messages for you in terms of prevention, looking after your kidneys, and also donating your kidney and organs for helping and saving other people's life. We're going to have another break, and after the break, there's key messages from our wonderful guest, and we'll back with you in a minute. Let's have a break and see you in a minute. Assalamu alaikum.